Oh my god, he's going to go around the inside. He's going to send it. He's taking the lead of the Canadian Grand Prix on the last lap. Matt Turner takes the win in a remarkable race. We have teammates coming together. How devastating!
And hello everybody, welcome in to the iFormula League Formula 2 Series, round number 6 here for the USA Grand Prix from the Circuit of the Americas. 20 turns here for this 3.36 mile circuit, and I will tell you what, this circuit is a challenge for a lot of these drivers. There's a lot of corners that are very deceptive, especially when you take into account the likes of turn number 13 and 14, turn number 15 as well. Very, very slow corners, and turn number 1 is deceptively tricky, going uphill, so you can brake really late, but you got to be careful when you get on the power on exit, as well as the car may end up spinning as the road sort of cambers away from you on the exit. But enough about that. This circuit, we know, is very good for racing. We've got the long back straights of between turn 11 and turn 12. We've got the long start finish straight as well, but all of which are going to hopefully provide us with some amazing overtaking opportunities. Following through section 1, through the S's into turn 10, probably not going to be an overtaking opportunity, but we're going to probably see these cars try and follow very closely indeed. But enough about that. Let's talk about an update here with the championship standings. Unfortunately, no graphic today, but I could inform you of the driver standing updates after Hungaroring, which was our last round. Cesar Cabral currently first place in the driver standings with 90 points to his name, followed off by Chris Byram in second with 78 points. Lewis Archer in third with 77, and Carlos Gatau with 76. All trying to make it a four-way battle for the lead, and to take the spot from Cesar Cabral is going to be tough. It's going to be tough indeed, because Cesar wants to win every race, and he's been doing a pretty good job of it so far. I mean, he's won 2 races so far, same with Chris Byram, but unfortunately Chris's other results quite haven't gone the same way as Cesar, so that will show you the discrepancy in points there. But I mean, the rest of the championship, we will have Ivan Bothkamp in 5th, currently with 54 points. Frederick Larson in 6th with 31. Lewis Colon with 24 points in 7th. Alex Gutnecht in 8th with 15, tied with Ronald Mathau. Ronald Mathot with in 9th place, and then Daniel Thomas bringing out the top 10 with 12 points. So a lot of drivers trying to maybe make a name for themselves here in F2, and let's see actually what these drivers are currently doing in qualifying, as it seems like at the moment Chris Byram is the first on our list of drivers who have set a valid lap time. 1 minute 48.5 so far, with Alex Gutnecht was in second place before Carlos Gatau did a 148.679 to put himself up there in second place. Alex Gutnecht now obviously third place because of that, with a 138.84. So trying to find maybe a bit of time here, and I'm sure he will absolutely try his best to do so. You know, these cars probably having to be set up in very different ways depending on the driving style. So we may see some drivers opt for more lower downforce, which will give them the speed in the straights, as we might see from a couple of drivers. We may see their sector times really improve in the straights and on the longer sections of circuit where the downforce doesn't matter as much, but then through the likes of sector 1 the aero's obviously not working as hard, so we may end up seeing potentially some issues there with those drivers who opt for the lower downforce not quite having the same speed through sector 1, where it is very difficult to pass, but you can do it. But at the moment, it doesn't look like anyone is upping their time so far. It looks like everyone's just sort of settling in for a banker lap for now before they really start to push and really start to try and improve their lap times and get to where they want to be in the race. Obviously 1:48.5 is the benchmark so far, so everyone's going to be gunning for that as hard as they can, and one person who is absolutely going to try that is Alex Gutnecht, who we will see what his time through Sector 1 is looking like, see whether or not he's improving at all. But at the moment, it doesn't look like there's any massive improvements. But saying that, I am sure he will be able to pull out something in the second sector, and obviously trying to use as much of the curve as possible without getting an off track as well. Only needs to find a couple of tenths, admittedly, to try and attack Chris Byron, and if he can do, as he does indeed set a purple middle sector, so we may end up seeing Alex Gutnecht cause an upset here and push himself into pole position, and, you know, best Chris Byron for that #1 spot. But another driver that we should definitely take a look at for that #1 spot, and we definitely cannot count him out, is Lewis Archer. But at the moment, not having set a valid lap time, so we'll wait to see whether or not that's due to difficulties with off tracks, or whether that was just a potentially he just went out late in the session. Obviously only 25 minutes here, and as the track develops, obviously the lap times should hopefully get a little bit quicker. But yeah, at the moment, it doesn't look like anyone is massively improving. I mean, Alex Gutnecht's just come across the line, I believe, or is just about to come across the line. So we'll see whether or not he improves. Looks like he was down on his times in Sectors 1 and Sectors 2. So, sorry, Sectors 3, but did go purple through the middle. So we'll see whether or not he actually improves on his time, and it doesn't look like he did. I think there was maybe a mistake there that I didn't catch. But let's look at Travis Rodriguez and see whether or not he can improve. New to the series, I think raced last weekend, but definitely new face, which is always cool to see. We enjoy seeing these new faces here, as he comes across the line to put it 6th at the moment with a 1:50.471, and then Daniel Thomas, who is Lewis Archer's teammate, in 7th with a 1:50.7. So it looks like a lot of drivers are struggling out here at the moment on the circuit. I mean, you would imagine so, given the fact that this is it's quite harsh on its track limits, and you would imagine that a lot of drivers are obviously trying to use as much as they can, as we will see hopefully Cesar Cabral finish his first flying lap, and indeed we do, to put himself up there in 4th position with a 1:50 flat, and then hopefully Lewis Archer finishes his lap and puts himself somewhere near the top 3 as well. Top 4 at the moment, so not quite as fast as he wanted, but a 1:49.255 is definitely a nice banker lap for now, until we finally start seeing some quicker laps coming out from him, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, we're going to keep monitoring whether or not drivers are improving. Obviously 9 minutes in, you're looking at potentially a couple of banker runs and just ironing out some mistakes before you really start to try and gain everything you can near the end of the session, as Daniel Thomas is looking to complete his next flying lap. Let's see whether or not he improves at all through the final sector. He has improved so far in every single sector, and judging by the lap times he's got so far, he's looking to be relatively quick. Maybe not top 3, but definitely considering it and making the push there to get into the 1 minute, sort of low 1:50 50s, maybe even into the 1:49s with his teammate. But we'll see as he comes through the final couple of corners, and unfortunately going that wide is going to mean you're going to have an off track, and that's not going to improve your time at all. But someone who potentially can improve their time and really start to make a push for that #1 spot, Cesar Cabral. We were talking about him in the championship earlier and how he is currently leading with 90 points over his rivals, and he's going to want to try and push for every single point he can get, as we're going to see him come through turn number 19. Watch the track limits, see if he avoids them, and I'm pretty sure this should be a pretty tidy lap. Didn't look like he extended the track too much as we go through the final corner there at turn number 20 as he comes across the line, and I don't think he improved. I think he no, I think he improved slightly, but it wasn't enough to push him up any higher. Could also have been a invalid lap as well. So we'll keep monitoring those as they come through. But Chris Byram is currently up in Sector 2, but down everywhere else. So potentially not an improvement on his lap time, as Lewis Archer's coming around into turn number 1 to start his next flying lap. And let's go for an onboard for this lap and see just exactly how it looks from the driver's eye as we will be going through turn number 3 here. Into turn number 4, the massive sweepers with sausage curbs on each apex, really inviting the car to try and take as much of the corner as they absolutely can. But obviously you need to be careful that you don't end up in a situation where you do mount those curbs, because if you do, there is a massive crash waiting to happen, you know, with cars launching into the air. As we now go through turn number 10 towards turn number 11. Very, very late apex here, and you almost sail past the corner before turning in, as it looks as though a couple of other drivers, Carlos Catal is currently improving through the third sector, so we'll see whether or not he improves on his lap time. It doesn't look like he has yet, so unfortunately for him, he is still at 1/10 off Chris Byram, which is going to be kind of frustrating, I imagine, because I'm sure he knows exactly where that 10th or 2 is. But still keeping on board with Lewis Archer so far, as he is up through the first sector, up through the second, down a bit in the third. But then here we are seeing him taking an interesting line here for turn number 15. Normally we see a lot of people going wider there before exiting here into turn 16, 17, and 18. Almost a similar line to how you take miss, hit, miss in Nürburgring there from Lewis Archer. Let's see if that can find him any couple of tenths that he can. Going in through the final corner, got to avoid that sausage curve there on the apex, keep the car nice and straight on exit, and it is a long run to the line, or at least feels like it. Although, saying that, we do already get an improvement from him into a 148.949, so using the start-finish line that is a little bit further back than where the official one would be, it seems, as Lewis Colon also jumps up there into 5th place for a 149.792. So keeping it nice and close up in the top for the top 5. There are actually 14 drivers here in the race, but I'm not entirely sure if all of them are racing today, or whether or not some of them potentially have some quali bands to serve. I can try and find that information for you during the warm-up, and hopefully we can see where people end up as to why some people aren't qualifying. As Matt Turner, new into the season, and puts himself mid-pack so far, so not too bad for him. I imagine that there's a couple of places that he may want to try and improve. But yeah, definitely not bad at all, as we see Carlos Catal does indeed find those couple of tenths that he needed to put himself up into pole position. 2 tenths clear of Chris Byram so far. Almost made it 3 tenths. He set a new fastest final sector with a 42.99, which I believe is fastest by anyone by at least a tenth. So finding a 10th in that final sector is definitely tricky. A lot of it being flat out, so not really many places to find time, and you just have to be really brave through turn number 19 and really get a good exit out of turn 20 to find the most time in this sector here, as we'll see whether or not Lewis Archer can do that. Find that time in the 4th sector indeed, and if he can, that will put himself a little bit further up. Just needs to find a 10th, as we will see the time come in, and it was a 149.29. So unfortunately not an improvement from Lewis Archer, so he's still going to be stuck there in 4th for now. But let's see if anyone else is improving. It looks like Lewis Colon has just improved, gone a little bit closer to Archer's time with a 149.0, but not actually moved anywhere just yet. What that's going to mean is it's going to be nice for his mental, absolutely, pushing that mental massively by setting yourself lap times that you know you can achieve. And yeah, you may not gain positions, but at least you know you're closer, so it doesn't feel like you're that far off of the top pack, which is always going to be nice for these drivers. As we will now jump on board with Carlos Catal, see whether or not he can improve on his fastest lap and really start to extend that gap as he comes through the final corner. He has improved in the 2nd sector, has improved through the 3rd sector, did set a new PB in the final sector, and jumps down into the 47s. First driver into the 47s from Carlos Catal, and indeed he has decided that he has had enough of being the runner-up up in a lot of these races. He's had enough of being the second place man and instead decided that he's going to try and practice as much as he can and get that win that he knows he needs to really take the fight to Chris Byram ahead of him in the championship. And hey, this qualifying session is really starting to heat up. Absolutely. It's looking like this qualifying session's absolutely delivering everything that we want it to and more. Obviously, with the likes of Carlos Ghosn now setting that benchmark actually into the 47s, I think that's going to cause a lot of people to have to rethink what they're doing setup-wise, because, you know, to all of a sudden be 5/10ths down on a lap that you thought was really, really solid is something that... you know, I'm sure will play a factor in how you run your next couple of laps. You're going to be trying to figure out, where was it that I lost that match time, you know? But Carlos Ghosn, just as we say that, is finding even more time here. So potentially, we could be looking at a mid-47 here, or even lower. Purple through the first sector, yes, slightly down in the second, but it's not too bad. And then up in the third, which means that hopefully by the time he comes around turn number 19 coming up, and then into the final corner of turn 20, provided he doesn't get an off-track on this lap, this is looking to be even more impressive than what we saw from his original lap that did that 47 in the first place. So here we go, across the line. Let's see what it is. And yeah, he has improved by another 0.2 of a second, and that is a mid-47, a 147.798. And wow, he is looking to be really pushing the limits of what this car can do around this track, and he's proving that as much as Lewis Archer wants to try and run away with the championship like he tried to do in Hungaroring, Carlos Ghosn is going to have absolutely none of it and is absolutely going to try and take the fight to him. So I'm pretty sure when Lewis Archer went to send out a message last race, the message was heard loud and clear by Carlos Ghosn. But looking at a couple of other people that may improve their times, Ivan Bovkamp currently in 8th place. Let's see whether or not his lap time has improved. And it does, jumping him up into P6, which is always great to see. Currently 2 seconds off Carlos Ghosn, but definitely a nice jump up to go from 8th to 6th. Obviously puts you a bit more in the midfield, so potentially turn 1 is a little bit more sketchy, but at the same time, it's always nice to be a little bit further to the front and being able to maybe cause a little bit of battles there into the first couple of corners if people aren't aware that you're behind them. So Bovkamp is definitely going to be looking really, really good after that. And Luke Mitchell, I think, is currently setting his first lap out there on track, so we'll see whereabouts that puts him as he comes across the line, or potentially may have had an off track, so that one won't count for him. Carlos Ghosn, again, finding even more time through that third sector. I'm not sure where he's finding everything, but he is absolutely pushing this thing to the limits as we see him try and take maybe the IndyCar line there and have to pull it up before his last lap. But let's jump back on board with a couple of other drivers. We'll go on board with Chris Byram here and see whether or not he can improve with only 6 minutes left of this session. At the moment, down in every sector, so not an improvement for him, but he's going to look to maybe make it this lap, and this one is the one that will count for everything. He wants to get that pole position and needs to find 7/10 to do so. Seth Davidson finally puts in his first lap, 153.5, so steady banker lap. That's not going to improve him too much, as indeed Daniel Thomas jumps up quite a few positions there. Actually now puts himself up into 6th with a 149.647, but just as I say that, Cesar Cabral comes in and puts himself 4th with a 148.863, so nice find of time there for Cesar Cabral. Ivan Bovkamp also improving a little bit, but I don't think improving any positions just yet, as we will see whether or not Luke Mitchell can finally put a lap together, and unfortunately does seem to be going a little bit wide there, so no improvements just yet, as Chris Byram is green through both the first and second sectors, and if he keeps pushing like this, potentially we may see a new pole position man with Chris Byram, but he is now down a little bit in sector 3. It's not too much, but it is a little bit, and let's see what he can do in the final couple of corners of the lap. And I think from Carlos Ghosn's point of view, he's going to be looking really happy with himself. 7/10 up on his closest rival, so we'll see whether or not he does indeed decide to go out for another lap, and it looks as though he may do. Currently on pit exit, so unless he's practicing a couple of starts, and really getting himself set up for the race. We'll wait to see, but Chris Byram, let's see what he can do through the final sector, coming through turn number 19. Got to watch that sausage curb and the exit. Make sure you don't pick up an off track before going into turn number 20 and the final corner of the circuit. Let's see whether or not he improves his time, and we'll wait to see what that looks like. He does improve to a 148.290, but it's still not enough to put himself into pole position. He is still 4/10 off, almost half a second off, as Alex Gutnecht improves his time, but again doesn't really push much higher than where he originally was. You know, yes, he's improved slightly, but not by much, and he's still, you know, a full second down almost from Carlos Catal. So yeah, it doesn't look like many people are massively improving their times anymore, and it's a little bit of a shame to see, but I'm sure everyone is going to gun it near the end of the session. And if they do, what it's going to mean is potentially Carlos Catal might have to go out and see if he can find any more time, just to keep that pole position safe, just to keep making sure that he can absolutely pull off the win that we all know that he's capable of and definitely deserves. Been driving his absolute heart out here in the F2 League, and definitely putting in the work as well. So we'll see what Carlos Catal looks like after his outlap. There's a little bit of traffic in front, so potentially he might abort this lap, but I do believe the car in front is Lewis Archer, so hopefully Lewis doesn't get in the way too much and instead ends up just focusing more on his own line and really trying to make that lap count. Both of them are on outlaps, of course, so we'll see what they're capable of when they go and do their laps. We'll look for any sort of improvements in Sector 1 from both of these drivers, as it looks like Daniel Thomas is also improving slightly through Sector 3, but I think he is down through Sector 1 and 2 as well, so potentially not an improvement on his lap time here. And we'll wait to see what that looks like as he comes through the final couple of corners before the end of the lap. Looking to see that GTR car definitely does look nice in this lighting. The nice little chrome there on the sides. But he does come through the final corner here, turn number 20, and goes a little bit wide there, all the way onto the AstroTurf. I'm not sure if this lap will count, even if it was an improvement, and I'll look to see whether or not that would have been an improvement, as it looks like we didn't even get a time come in through for Daniel Thomas there, so potentially not an improvement at all, and just a discarded lap there at the end with the off track. So unfortunately for him, it means that no improvements, and he will stay 7th for now. But Carlos Catal has indeed improved through the first sector, and then again in Sector 2 and Sector 3 he is down, but purple through Sector 1, so we'll see whether or not that can outweigh the deficit of being down in Sector 2 and Sector 3 trying to follow Lewis Archer. So we'll take a look through the final couple of corners, as Luke Mitchell is green through all sectors so far, having not set a lap yet, so we'll hopefully see a lap from him soon. That will be a representative time for himself, and if so, hopefully that means he can start putting himself up there near P8, maybe P7, battling with that mid-pack, but we'll have to wait and see. But Carlos Catal, this is the man everyone's watching to see whether or not he can improve his time through the final corner, as he goes extremely wide there, and I'd be surprised if he didn't pick up an off-track for that. We will see what that looks like as he comes across the line, as it looks like indeed he did pick up an off track, so no improvements for himself, as Chris Byram is trying to give it absolutely everything here in the final sector to really just decrease that deficit as much as he can. And at the moment it doesn't look as though he's up by much, if anything at all, so needs a really good couple of corners here, and that turn 15 very crucial for him to get right. Turn number 16, 17 and 18 all pretty much flat out, as Daniel Thomas does improve with a 149.384, but again staying near that 7th place, so just increasing the gap to Bovkamp just a little bit, as Chris Byram, Ivan Bovkamp's teammate, as Lewis Colon actually goes through and puts himself in 3rd place right at the end of the session. And Chris Byram, does he improve at all? Unfortunately, it doesn't look like he did. No, down 3/10 on his fastest. But Lewis Colon right at the end, putting himself up into P3. I believe he was near sort of P5 or P6 there, or maybe even further down, and then to put himself P3 right at the end is very, very impressive indeed. And it looks like Carlos Ghosn is just going to call this lap off potentially. I believe he is currently down in every sector, and Luke Mitchell still needs to get a lap on the board here, but we'll wait and see what that looks like for himself, as I think he just gotten off track, so we may not be seeing any laps coming in from him. But it looks like everyone who is out on track so far is down on their times. And I will try to find, while we're waiting to see the results of Carlos Ghosn, see whether or not he improves at all, but I don't think it will be. I think it was just sort of a glory lap near the end, just to really reset himself before the end here of the session, as Rodriguez pulls back into the pits as well. Daniel Thomas, I believe, is on the lap but not improving. Lewis Colon, the same situation, and then Mitchell still not having set a valid lap yet, but we'll wait and see whether or not he does, as he comes through across the line to not set another lap. So unfortunately, no lap there for Luke Mitchell. I think just unfortunately going off track quite a few times, and obviously if you go off track, it means that your lap time will be invalid. So unfortunately no improvements there from him, and it doesn't look like Daniel Thomas improved at all either. Let's see whether or not Lewis Colon can improve, because I believe he has just enough time to do it if he so wished, but I believe he's just called this lap off for now, and he is just going to take the checkered flag there to end off our qualifying session, in which Carlos Ghosn making a point, putting himself in there as one of the only drivers, in fact the only driver, to do a 147. And the next closest being Chris Byram, who's a 148.29, and currently 3/10 off. So 3/10 off of at least getting into the 47s, and it's more than that for the gap in the championship. So yeah, I mean, Carlos, if you're looking for a win, you've done the work, you've done the hard work of getting in there to getting in there to get pole position. So let's see if he can hold that off on the race. But one thing that I was going to double check just to see whether or not there was any qualifying bans is potentially why people didn't qualify, but it doesn't look like there was any this week. So at least not that we have to worry about in F2. There will probably be a couple coming through next week, which is absolutely fine. But warm-up time for these drivers, just to change your car setup, make sure you're back on that race setup and ready to go, as we take a look there at the actual banking there for turn number 1. Definitely a steep incline, turn number 1, always rising as you go down on the exit of turn 20 all the way up to the top of the hill at turn number 1. You're always climbing, and it feels like a roller coaster when you're actually in the car. It's really nice, really nice corner, but definitely easy to spin it on exit, as I'm sure a few of these drivers have done in practice. I believe I saw a couple of posts from Carlos Ghosn, who was getting it a little bit sideways through a couple of the corners. So yeah, definitely trying to push and find everything he can do, and yeah, it paid off, to have him currently sat there in pole position is, an amazing job from him. And we will take a look at the qualifying results in full, just so we can double check where everyone finished. And we know most of them, with Carlos Ghosn being there at the top, and then Chris Byram sat there second place, with Lewis Colon in third, Alex Gutnecht in fourth, Cesar Cabral in fifth, Lewis Archer in sixth, with his teammate behind him there in P7. Ivan Bothkamp in eighth, Matt Turner, one of the new boys to the scene, in P number 9, with Travis Rodriguez there in rounding out your top 10. Alexander Carver-Robbins there in P11, with Seth Davidson there in 12th, Luke Mitchell in 13th with no time, and then Troy Banks there in 14th. Not entirely sure why he didn't set a time, but I also can't see him actually out on track yet. So potentially a driver that isn't here for the race, but we will we'll keep an eye on it, and we'll be watching very closely, I'm sure, as we go through the various sessions. But 2 minutes of this warm-up done. Almost 3 minutes done. So maybe a couple of practice starts need to be ironed out before we jump on board. But as always, we want to give a massive shout out to our sponsors who are all helping us run this league and keep up the commentary every week, keep up the broadcasts every week. All of the volunteers that we have currently running for us, all of the steward help, every help is massively appreciated, and you know, without a lot of those guys we couldn't go racing here for this league, so massive shout out to all of those guys. As yeah, I mean, we're all fans of racing, we all enjoy it, so yeah, we absolutely love to see all these people absolutely go at it week after week, and the F2 never disappoints. Absolutely never disappoints. It could be a grid of 10 drivers, and I bet it'd still be the closest race of the weekend. One thing that I am curious about is obviously with the slightly newer tyres that I'm not sure whether or not they were given to the F3 car, Formula Renault 3.5 cars, but potentially if there was a new tyre model for those guys, then wondering whether or not they found some more time there in the tyre model to maybe that's why Carlos Ghosn pushed himself up so high, as Luke Mitchell does finally get a lap in. Does it in warm-up with a 155.495, so you know, he finally got his lap in, and you know, it's just good to see. You know, you're learning and you're trying to improve, and yeah, hats off to you, Luke. You're doing a great job. But yeah, I mean, with how this championship is, it's so tightly contested near the top. I mean, you know, we were talking about the championship points earlier. Chris Byram, Lewis Archer, and Carlos Ghosn all separated by 2 points. So Carlos Ghosn now is tied with Lewis Archer on points after that qualifying pole position. Actually, I do need to double check whether or not you do get a fastest lap for pole position, or whether it's just fastest lap of the race and safest driver. But regardless, Carlos Ghosn maybe does the fastest lap of the race and pushes himself up there into pole position. But here we are then on the grid for the race, and we will get up just how many laps this race is going to be, as we will remove the timer and double check to see whether or not we do have the laps up. But we are just gridding for now, and hopefully we can see all those beautiful Formula Renault 3.5 cars lining up with all of the glorious sounds that they do indeed make. It is 36 laps here of Circuit of the Americas, as Carlos Ghosn will lead the group away. Cesar Cabral, Daniel Thomas currently not gridded, but the rest of them are all ready to go. Cesar Cabral just popping in there. And here we are getting ready with all of the lights, all 5, as we have all 5 lights on, ready to go, and Carlos Ghosn will lead us away into turn number 1. It looked like there was a starter there off the start of the grid who just didn't get going, but we will see this battle here into turn number 1, Carlos Ghosn and Chris Byram, and both of them seem to get through okay, and Alex Gutneck's trying to use the opportunity there to go up into turn number 1 and maybe make a pass, and it doesn't look like he was able to find anything just yet, as Lewis Archer and Lewis Colon are both all over the back end of him, and Lewis is going to try and go the long way around the outside, not able to find anything just yet, but definitely seeming like he's quicker off the start and really pushing on those cold tires and giving Lewis Colon behind him absolutely nowhere to go. I think Colon dropped a few places off the starting line, so potentially a issue there on the throttle, just not able to get the grip that he needed. But here we are, Lewis Archer sending it up the inside of Alex Gutneck, and is Alex Gutneck going to be able to come back on him down the start-finish straight? It is a very long start-finish straight here, so potentially we may see a move on near the end into turn number 12, and that is indeed what we'll probably see from both 2 drivers here. Alex Gutneck's trying to go up the inside of Lewis Archer, but at the same time Chris Byram's with a late move there on Carlos Ghosn, and both drivers trying to make absolutely every passing opportunity they can on lap 1, with Lewis Archer and Alex Gutneck still side by side, and behind them Lewis Colon and Ivan Bothkamp still going at it. Lewis Archer's now probably probably going to be overtaken by Lewis Colon as well if he's not careful, but just managing to get past and get himself back into the groove, get back into things, and see whether or not he can improve his lap times and start to maybe pull away from the back of Lewis Colon and Ivan Bovkamp as well. So yeah, starting of lap number 1, absolutely everything kicked off. A couple of drivers making up a few positions, a couple of drivers losing them, but no big crashes yet, which is always nice to see. Daniel Thomas currently down 7 positions, so interesting there, but that seems to be the main one of note, as Chris Byram and Carlos Catal once again going at it into turn number 1, and it looks as though Carlos got off a little bit worse than Chris there, so I'm not sure whether or not there was any contact made between the two of them, or whether it was just a very, very closely fought battle. But that's going to mean Alex Gutnecht is now going to try and get all the way onto the back of Carlos Catal, and if he can, that's going to push Carlos down even further into the championship. But Alex needs to have one eye ahead and one eye behind, as Lewis Archer's going to try and get all over the back of him, and I believe that's Ivan Bovkamp spinning out in the background and losing a couple positions, which will promote Alexander Carver-Robbins and Matt Turner up. Alexander currently up 4 positions off the start, so amazing result from him to get up 4 positions there off the start of this race. But yeah, I mean, it's absolutely incredible what that driver is able to do, and currently fastest through sector 1 as well. Admittedly, Carlos Catal hasn't had a clean run yet, as it looks as though Alex Gutnecht's going to try and go up the inside here of turn number 12. Is he going to be able to do anything with that inside line? Doesn't look like he can, but Carlos Catal now gets the inside for turn number 13 and then turn number 14, unless Alex goes for the over-under and maybe can find some room here through turn 15, but unable to find anything just yet, as Lewis Archer is looming in the background with Lewis Colon as well, and saying, boys, if you keep battling like this, we're also going to get in the mix, and we're not going to make it easy for any of you, as Alex Gutnecht and Carlos Catal are absolutely going at it into turn number 19. Carlos Catal running very wide there, but Alex Gutnecht going up the inside line and pushing Carlos Catal all the way to the outside, and I believe we will see that move being made into turn number 1, as all the drivers are getting also close through the start-finish straight, and maybe trying to make it 3 wide into turn 1, with Lewis Archer on the outside of Carlos Catal, and Carlos Catal doing an amazing job at defending it. Alex Gutnecht maybe not there on the brakes and being overtaken by Lewis Colon, which is then going to maybe promote Lewis Colon up even higher if he can maybe make a move here on Lewis Archer, who hits the sausage curb and pushes Alex Gutnecht through. So Lewis Colon loses yet another position, and everything is absolutely going crazy between these drivers. Alex Gutnecht is now back up into P4, looking to try and make a move on Lewis Archer. Lewis Archer's gained a couple of positions now up to P3 from P6 on the grid, and Lewis Colon and Cesar Cabral even are all going at it as well. So Cesar Cabral trying to defend the long way around the outside of turn number 11, and if he can do so, he has to then defend again into turn number 12, and it doesn't look like he can. So Cesar Cabral now tucking in all the way down this long straight, and maybe even pushing a little bit there before turn number 12, and once again just keep dipping out in the slipstream, making sure he can make that last minute move into turn number 12, but doesn't look like he's gonna sit there and make that just yet. Instead he's gonna bide his time, and this battle is incredibly close between all these drivers here, down from P2 all the way down to P7. So many drivers all within a couple of seconds of each other, and it's just gonna mean that this battle is just gonna keep going. Matt Turner's now back in the mix, pushing Alexander Carver-Robbins and seeing whether or not he can make a mistake, as Lewis Archer again still putting pressure on the back of Carlos Catal, and Carlos Catal, I will tell you what, is soaking up absolutely everything. And if this race keeps going like it is, my voice is going to die by the end of this. But Lewis Archer once again weaving all the way in the background there and really going to the inside line, forcing Carlos Catal to go all the way around the outside. And Carlos is going to say, all right, mate, if you want to take that inside line, I'm going to get a massive run on the exit and still get past you. So it's not going to matter if you have inside, outside, or the middle. I'm still going to race you, and I'm still going to be ahead ahead of you when it comes out of the corner. And it seems like Lewis Archer seems to be doing a little bit better through these twisty sections here of turn 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Also turn number 9 here as well. And it looks as though Lewis Archer's just currently sitting on the back and isn't really able to make any moves just yet, but able to definitely keep things nice and close. And obviously that's what we want to see. We want to see these boys getting nice and close and making sure that they can overtake when the move presents itself. Here, back on board with Cesar Cabral, I thought he was close to Lewis Colon, but apparently not, as we will jump back on board here with Carlos Catal and Lewis Archer, who Lewis Archer's going really, really wide there on the outside, and Carlos Catal's going really wide on the inside, and all of a sudden Alex Goodneck comes out of absolutely nowhere and catches Lewis Archer napping, and there was contact between Lewis Archer and Alex Goodneck as well. Lewis Archer hitting the back end of Alex Goodneck and spinning him around. Alex Goodneck managing to recover and only losing a couple of positions, but that is absolutely devastating. Lewis Archer's now down into P5 from P3 and P4. So it looks as though Lewis Archer didn't really lose much in that contact, but that is definitely one that's going to be looked at post-race, because that was an incident that could have probably been avoided, as Cesar Cabral has now been pushed up into 4th place because of that. Chris Byram currently setting the pace with a 150.15 as well. Fastest driver on circuit so far, and with all of this, I think Carlos Catal is finally going to have a bit of breathing room, but saying that, Lewis Colon's going all the way onto the back end of him and seeing whether or not he can maybe make anything of it. Lewis Archer making an opportunistic move into turn number 1 and making it work a long way around the outside of Cesar Cabral, but Cesar Cabral holding on nicely as these drivers are all battling through this sector that I thought you wouldn't be able to pass, and these boys are proving me again, once again, wrong, and saying that we can overtake anywhere on this circuit. It doesn't matter where we are on track. We're going to try and make absolutely every move we can, because we want that position from the car in front of us. As just as I jump on board with Matt Turner, who was close to Alexander Carver-Robbins, it looks as though Alexander does indeed spin there on exit of the corner, so I'm not sure whether or not there was any damage to his car or whether that was just an eager right foot, but that pushes him down a couple of positions, now down into P9, and trying to keep track of all of this is proving to be insane, as it looks like everywhere you look there is a battle on track right now. Lewis Colon not quite close enough to maybe make a move, but Lewis Archer also thought about it, but holding off for now, just trying to get a good exit here out of turn number 12 into turn number 13 and 14, trying to follow really closely as Ivan Bovekamp is now trying to get onto the back of Matt Turner as well. This will be our closest battles on track so far. Carlos Catal slowing a little bit there through a couple of the corners, so unless Lewis has the pace going through turn number 17 here, looking up the inside into turn number 18, can he hold it around the outside of turn 19? It doesn't look like he will, as Carlos Catal is already into the pit lane, so I'm wondering whether or not Carlos is pitting early, using a strategy that we've seen happen quite a lot in this series, where you pit early, you potentially pit early enough to go all the way to the end, so that would be 30 laps to make it on those sets of tyres to the end, so we'll see whether or not that plays out in his favour. Unless there was damage to his car. Obviously there wasn't any, from what I've seen, there was no contact being made, so it looks like it was just a very early pit stop, and we'll see what happens. But he does indeed come out in P10, I believe, as Lewis Archer is currently hunting down Cesar Cabral, keeping this nice and close. I'm sure Cesar is soaking up this pressure and absolutely loving every minute of action that he can get his hands on, because this is what he loves to do. He loves to race here in this iFormula League. We've heard it so many times when he's been on the podium, and he absolutely loves racing. You can see the passion from him, and it is amazing to see. Was looking obviously to try and maybe get a second driver for that U-Race Brazil team, but doing a very good job flying the flag solo for his team for now, as Lewis Archer's going to get a massive slipstream here down that start-finish straight, and he's going to look to jank weave everywhere he can to maybe sell him a dummy, but at the moment Cesar Cabral not thinking anything of it and just letting Lewis Archer go through, it seemed like, and just sort of easing off for a bit, maybe trying to go for an undercut, but not able to find anything of it just yet. So unless Lewis just made a very opportunistic move, we saw him lock up the brakes there into turn number 1, so you know, it's very difficult to say what happened with the move, but definitely Lewis Archer is really pushing. He really wants to prove himself in this championship, and he has gained 3 positions off the start, but Matt Turner gaining up 4 at the moment, so great job from him. You know, in his first race to go up 4 positions on a grid that's this close and this competitive, very, very, very nice job indeed. But jumping back on board with Carlos Catal here, he is battling with Seth Davidson, who I think has maybe had a little bit of a mistake. Or past Carlos even. So Matt Turner, just as I say that, talking about how well he's doing, and already he goes and sets the purple lap with a 150.13 as Carlos Catal is going to look down the start-finish straight, going to look into turn number 1 to see if he can pass Seth Davidson. And I'm sure Seth isn't going to give this up. He's going to be battling with him all the way to the line as Carlos Catal is trying to look for the move as late as he dares, going up the inside there of turn number 1 and making it look relatively easy to get that pass done. So he's now going to be trying to chase after his teammate Alexander ahead of him, and remember, he is on fresher tires, so potentially still trying to warm them up, still trying to get them in the right window to really start to push over the course of this next couple of laps. And this is only lap blooming 7 of a 36 lap race, and already we've seen so much action as Matt Turner is trying to maybe make as close of an effort as he can to catch up to the back of Cesar Cabral, and Ivan Bovkamp also in the background there trying to put in a few more points with his teammate Chris Byram and really take it to that championship, that team championship standings as well. So Carlos Catal indeed did pass Seth and has stayed past him, as Travis Rodriguez has now indeed passed Luke Mitchell as well. So Travis Rodriguez now only down 1 position, but Luke Mitchell gaining a position there off the start as well, I believe because of Daniel Thomas's couple of mistakes. But potentially Luke Mitchell might be looking back for a move here into this next corner, and so far not thinking anything of it just yet, but staying very much close enough to maybe cause a battle here down for 12th position. And regardless on whether or not you're fighting for the points, these boys definitely want to fight as though they are fighting for every last inch of track on this circuit, as Luis Colon has indeed set the fastest lap as well, and indeed has gone into the 49s, so pushing the limits here of what this car can do in a race pace, but clipping a few of those sausage curbs and bouncing himself around a little bit. Probably not going to feel good in the morning, that's for sure, as we will jump back on board with Matt Turner trying to catch up to the back of Cesar Cabral, and Ivan Bovkamp also looking to try and get involved in that battle for 4th position. And it's a battle that we've been seeing raging since lap number 1. Obviously, a couple of drivers have indeed started to find their rhythm, started to find their groove, and go a little bit further on. And obviously, with the likes of Carlos Catal pitting so early, you would imagine a couple of other drivers may indeed follow suit, and either that or will they try to extend as much as possible and pit at the last possible opportunity. Obviously, if a safety car comes out, I believe Carlos Catal is the most to benefit from that, being the only one who has pitted so far. But Cesar Cabral currently soaking up the pressure from Matt Turner, and Matt Turner obviously clearly a very quick driver from that CUDA team, and you know, I think it's amazing that CUDA have indeed said to Matt, hey, go race for us in F2, let's see what you can do, let's see what you can bring to the team, and really start to push every single second out of that car. And you know, up 4 positions, started 9th, up in 5th, so currently the biggest gainer so far off the start. And you know, for your first race in F2 to be battling championship leader Cesar Cabral, you know, you're looking at a potentially very good result, as Alex Gutnecht comes in again for what I would consider an early pit stop, lap 9. Normally we see these guys pitting sort of around halfway so that it's nice and done, and they can segment the race well enough for themselves. But yeah, I mean, again, a few drivers opting for that undercut strategy, and we'll see how that plays out. We'll see where he is on track in comparison to Carlos Catal as well. That's the one that I'm going to be interested to see, as it does look like indeed Carlos Catal has got out ahead of Alex Gutnecht, who is just leaving the pit lane now. So potentially a little bit of a slower pit stop. Looks like he was down just 1 second there on the pit lane time. So Alex Gutnecht now being pushed down into P10 after his pit stop, and proving that if you take a pit stop here, if you do it early, you're going to lose a lot of positions, but potentially will prove to us that there's a lot to gain from it as well. And if he can do that, then what that's going to mean is that a lot of drivers, I imagine, will start to look at that undercut strategy as well and keep going. Well, if this driver is pushing up a lot of positions and having pit so early, you know, I still need to pit yet, so I want to come out ahead of them. And if they obviously manage to do so, then you know, it's a bonus and proves that the undercut maybe isn't as powerful as a lot of these drivers think it is. So we'll wait and see. But Lewis Archer currently setting purple through the middle sector, so we may even see a new personal best lap from him. So I want to jump on board and see what he's capable of doing. Currently looking at the back, I believe, of Lewis Colon there, as Chris Byram has set the fastest lap of the race, a 1:49.24, and Cesar Cabral does come in for the pits. So again, a lot of these drivers pitting quite early, maybe expecting a safety car, or at least just trying the undercut strategy. And we'll see whether or not Cesar Cabral comes out ahead of Carlos Catao as well. But he hasn't even stopped yet, and Carlos is coming through the final couple of corners here. P19 and now, turn 19 and now turn 20. Going down the start and finish straight, you see Carlos Catao's teammate up ahead of him. Cesar Cabral has got going, so they may be potentially fighting on pit lane exit here, as Carlos Catao does just manage to get past into turn number 1, but Cesar Cabral almost looked like he was going to try for the move there out of the pit lane on Carlos Catao. So Carlos Catao does indeed get up ahead of Cesar Cabral after the pit stop, and yeah, I mean, great pit strategy from Carlos. Pitting nice and early, getting yourself some clean air, able to run really consistent laps, really quick laps as well, and as a result, you know, he's overtaken Cesar Cabral. He's managed to get himself up into P7, and Cesar is now going to look at the back of Carlos Catao and be like, well, that's my goal. You know, that's going to be the guy who's net second, because we know Chris Byram is probably going to come out ahead of Carlos Catao. I believe that you will lose around about 30 seconds or so in pit lane, and with that 37-second gap that Chris Byram has, I think he can come out ahead of Carlos Catao pretty comfortably. So Cesar is looking to definitely fight with Carlos and get another second place and really start to maybe upset Carlos's results in the championship. And if he can manage to do that, then Cesar can obviously take more points for himself up into the championship lead. But Chris Byram definitely answering back with a very dominant race so far, proving that this points battle that's going on between all four of these drivers, Lewis Archer, Chris Byram, Carlos Catao and Cesar Cabral, is all just going to go right down to the wire. And this is what we want to see. We want to see these races where we have a little bit of interesting strategy with a couple of drivers pitting super early, as Alexander Carver-Robbins comes in for the pits as well. So that is Carlos Catao's teammate, and I imagine Carver-Robbins will exit out behind Alex Gutnecht, but we'll wait and see what that looks like in terms of pit lane time, as he does indeed come out behind him. But going back to the point of looking at the championship fight, and you know, when the top four are so close on track and then so close in points as well, you know, it's just going to mean that every single last point you can get for your team is absolutely vital. If you can pick up fastest lap, or you can pick up safest driver, every single extra point that you can pick up is going to matter in this championship. I mean, currently we've got the second place, third place and fourth place in the championship all separated by 2 points. So if one of those drivers manages to finish 2 points ahead of any of the others, then they are ahead of that championship fight and in second place of the championship. So I don't see Cesar Cabral losing first place of the championship. I think if he finishes second, I believe Chris Byram won't have enough points to overtake him, but I will double check that. So if Chris Byram wins this race, he will be on a total of 93 points, I believe. No, it will be 103 points, sorry. And then Cesar Cabral, if he finished second, would be on 108 points. So it looks as though Chris Byram will need to maybe find a couple of other positions, or rather Cesar Cabral will need to drop a couple of positions in order to keep this championship fight close. But speaking of close, Seth Davidson and Alexander Carver-Robbins, obviously we know Alexander Carver-Robbins has now come out onto the pits. He has indeed got fresher rubber and is a man on a mission trying to get back all those positions that he can, and maybe going to try and make a move here into the last corner, but we'll see how close he gets. And that was very close there onto the back, all over the gearbox of Seth Davidson, and trying to follow as close as he can into turn number 1 here. Alexander Carver-Robbins maybe going to try and look to the inside, but Seth Davidson blocking it off, and it doesn't look like he's going to try and make a move, and he does indeed go very late on the brakes there into turn number 1. Thankfully no contact, but Seth Davidson just managing to see that in his rear view mirror and avoid any collisions that could have happened. But Seth Davidson still yet to pit, so doing a battle like this with someone who has pit, maybe not the best strategy, and instead maybe he might want to give this up and potentially move on and pit this lap just to get out of the way and potentially prove that he can come back, because, you know, yes, he's in P9 right now, he is in the points. You want to fight for that, but you know you need to pit. So if the driver behind you know has come out of the pits as well, potentially battling will cause bigger upset to your race in the future, and maybe you two collide and cause some massive issue, as it does indeed look like Seth Davidson was trying to squeeze him all the way to the outside of the track there and really fight him for every last position that he can. Seth Davidson looking up there a little bit on the inside right there. But again, really trying to battle here for P10 in this, sorry, P9. Obviously, it is double your points, but I'm imagining Seth Davidson is doing it more so to have someone to race with, and hey, more power to him. You know, if he can keep Alexander Carver-Robbins behind him, potentially if he knows that he's quicker after his pit stop, he might actually be able to make a move, as Alexander Carver-Robbins is looking all over Seth Davidson into turn number 19, as Matt Turner has indeed come into the pit lane and dropped down into P8. Potentially is going to join into this battle behind him, but it looks as though he comes out quite a bit ahead, so unfortunately for Seth Davidson and Alexander Carver-Robbins, no battles doing there for now. Instead, it's going to be Matt Turner looking to just solidify his place at the moment, obviously in that train that has indeed pit of Carlos Catal, Cesar Cabral, Alex Gutnecht, and Matt Turner has pit. Alexander Carver-Robbins also has pit, who is currently behind Seth Davidson, who has yet to pit. So I'd imagine that we'll see Seth come in pretty soon, and the likes of Chris Byram, Lewis Archer, Lewis Colon, Ivan Bovkamp all come in sort of around lap 15, maybe even later, and trying to push to like lap 18 to go halfway through the race. See how much fuel you need left to finish, and then start to really push for the final couple of laps, and before it all breaks loose once again. We know what these races are like. You know, it can start off being pretty, you know, no one's really fighting in the middle of the race, and then all of a sudden the last 10 laps or so absolutely go ballistic once again. And that's probably going to be what we'll see here, as Alexander Carver-Robbins and Seth Davidson are still battling over that P9, and this so far is the closest battle on track, and it's proven to be a pretty good one so far. Alexander Carver-Robbins with that fresher rubber trying to do everything he can to get past Seth Davidson, as Seth Davidson does indeed spin it eventually. Commentator's curse there, and we'll probably look to pit this lap. I imagine those tyres are not going to feel that great, but what that's going to mean is Alexander Carver-Robbins will indeed start pushing through and maybe trying to catch up to the back of Matt Turner, who is 6 seconds further up the road. So not impossible, but definitely going to be very difficult, as we know Matt Turner has been quick so far. I believe not currently holding the fastest lap of the race. Did have it originally from Lewis Archer, I believe, but Lewis Archer now has the fastest lap. Sorry, no, Chris Byram has the fastest lap of the race with a 1:49.24. So yeah, Chris Byram definitely trying to push for every last single second that he can, and trying to get as many points as he can to reduce that deficit he has to Cesar Cabral in the championships. But yeah, at the moment it looks like everyone's sort of dying out so far. It looks like all of the battles are pretty they're all simmering down somewhat, so we'll see whether or not anything sparks up later in this race, but it does mean we do have a opportunity to take a look at some of the championship fights. I mean, regarding points, if obviously the race finished like we expect it to, with maybe Chris Byram finishing in first, or with Carlos Gatau in second, maybe Lewis Archer third, Cesar Cabral fourth, or Lewis Archer's definitely going to be battling for top two. When he exits the pit lane, I imagine he'll be battling with Carlos Gatau and Cesar Cabral. But also another driver that we need to keep an eye on is Lewis Colon and Ivan Bovkamp as well. Both those drivers are doing a very, very good job for their teams, and proving to be pretty quick as well in comparison to what we may have seen from previous rounds. They're definitely starting to make that step up and prove to us that indeed, as drivers, they are starting to really understand this car and push this car for everything it has, as Lewis Archer has just gone purple in the second sector. So we'll keep an eye on Lewis Archer and see whether or not he can set a fastest lap of the race, which again will put points in his favor. Keep in mind as well, Lewis Archer missed the first round of the championship and yet is sat in third place, 1 point behind Chris Byram. So if that talks about the results that Lewis Archer has had since rejoining this series, I mean, that shows all you need to know. And yes, we know Carlos Gatau hasn't had a win, had quite a few second place finishes and a couple of third place as well, but hasn't really been able to find anything to get himself up there into that number one spot. And unfortunately, it's looking almost like this may be maybe a similar scenario. You know, we thought he may have had the pace there in qualifying, but hey, after the battle that he had with Chris Byram and dropping off after lap one, potentially we may see Carlos Gatau once again finish runner-up. But Lewis Archer, we'll see whether or not he can, as who was that in the background that just had a massive hit there into the wall? I believe that was Daniel Thomas there, who is now crabbing and very badly. I believe he'll have to return that into the pits, as your car definitely shouldn't be going sideways when you're trying to go forward. But I imagine he'll be coming back into the pit lane. But let's take a look at that crash again, just to see if what happened here. I believe maybe just lost it on traction coming out of the final corner here. So coming into turn 20, gets on the power, and yeah, unfortunately just loses it on power, and that'll be your race. Race all over. I mean, hitting the wall that fast, yeah, it's not going to do your car any good. And indeed, it looks like that is that is what happened. So with the, I believe that will be him pulling off to the side of the road. He'll try and get it back to the pit lane, and if he can, obviously he does have access to that fast repair, so he should be able to get back out there for this race, provided he hasn't used it yet. But this is our championship leader so far, Chris Byram. Sorry, not championship leader, race leader so far, Chris Byram. Oh. Sorry, I need to get myself a drink, prepare myself for the rest of this race. Coming through turn number 20 is Chris Byram, and so far hasn't really been challenged by many people, as Luke Mitchell comes in for his first pit stop there on the timing screens, and will be lapped by Chris Byram, so does go indeed one lap down, and I believe that will be the first of the back markers who are running so far. I believe Travis Rodriguez did retire, and then Daniel Thomas as well is currently a few laps down. So yeah, Chris Byram, I mean, he's kind of just been setting the pace of the race so far. He's been, lapping in the 49s really consistently. He's been untroubled really by anyone ahead of him, and there's been no one behind him. After the battle with Carlos Gatau, once he was able to find that clean air, and Carlos Gatau was battling with Lewis Archer, Cesar Cabral, Lewis Colon, Ivan Bovkamp, Alex Gutnecht, all of them are all getting involved for that P2, and it meant that Chris Byram can do what he really wanted to do here, which was start to run away and push himself there into a very nice position here in first place. I mean, if he pits, he probably will come out ahead of Carlos Gatau, maybe by a couple seconds. So we'll wait and see when he decides to. Currently setting a fastest Sector 1, but Lewis Archer answering back with a fastest Sector 2. So maybe we'll see a fastest lap from Chris Byram, then immediately a fastest lap for Lewis Archer. Both of them racing for fastest lap point, as I think Lewis Archer has maybe decided that now I need to start pushing if I want to reduce that gap to Byram, and I really need to start getting as much as I can out of this. Because if not, then I'm not going to be battling with Byram near the end, and I really want this win. But it's looking like that 11-second gap is definitely difficult to overcome. But yeah, I mean, Chris Byram's doing an amazing job. You know, he's just keeping the car steady, doing what he needs to do, and it hasn't really had any troubles. You know, there's been no back markers really to talk about that have been, you know, getting in the way. It's been a relatively quiet race for Byram, as I'm sure he'll probably say in an interview. So no fastest lap there from Chris Byram, but Lewis Archer does set a new personal best with a 1:49.83. So needs to find a bit more time to take the fastest lap from Chris Byram, who did a 1:49.24. So very, very quick indeed. But Lewis Colon, second fastest so far, with a 1:49.49, and proving that once again Lewis Colon does have the pace on any given day. He can really push that car and really prove that, yeah, I want to get involved in this championship fight. You guys are making it look so good. You know, Carlos Cataldo, Cesar Cabral, Lewis Archer, and Chris Byram all making it look so good and so nice for the championship that everyone wants to get involved. You know, Lewis Colon, Ivan Bovkamp, Alex Goodnecht, all of them want to prove that actually any of us can win here in the IFL, in the Formula 2, and that's amazing. You know, if we get a grid of 12 drivers that are all separated in qualifying by a second, and then in a race they're all, you know, doing similar lap times and making it really, really close, I mean, overall that's just going to mean that at the end of it we will have an absolutely amazing opportunity to get some incredible action and hopefully some incredibly close racing as well. And, you know, that's the goal at the end of the day. You know, we all want to see that. We all want to see these drivers prove that they are the best in this respective car and the best in this season, and maybe even the best in the league if you want to go that far and say those things. But yeah, the other thing to consider as well is the fact that while Chris Byram has been out in front, hasn't had any real reason to use DRS, so probably hasn't been using them and has been saving them. So if he does indeed start to go in for a battle near the end of the race, then he'll have a massive advantage, I imagine, over the back of the likes of Carlos Cataldo and Cesar Cabral, as we will see Lewis Colon jump into the pit lane. And we will jump on board and see where Carlos Cataldo is coming through turn number 19, actually. So potentially we'll see Lewis Colon being overtaken, and as such that will promote Carlos Cataldo up into 4th place, which I'm sure Carlos is thinking that this strategy worked absolute wonders for him, as Lewis Colon does indeed exit the pit lane, as we will jump back on board with Carlos Cataldo and see how close this will be coming out of the pit lane. But I believe the closest ones we've got to look on board with is Cesar Cabral and Lewis Colon, as Lewis Colon does exit in turn number 1 ahead of Cesar Cabral, but Cesar Cabral having quite a bit of momentum, obviously having just started another lap, and now is absolutely putting the pressure on the back of Lewis Colon. Lewis Colon not having had to soak up pressure much this race until now, and Cesar Cabral is going to make every last opportunity of that, and hopefully, maybe, push Lewis Colon into making a mistake, and that will give Cesar Cabral every opportunity he can to get past here into P number 5 and back into P number 5, I should say, as he looks to go around the inside and makes that move relatively easy, but goes incredibly wide. Maybe missed his braking zone. I thought that looked easier than it was, and indeed that looked like what happened. He just misjudged his braking zone, went way too deep into turn number 11, but going down the long straight here into turn number 12, and Lewis Colon making a very late move there to the inside, and as such Cesar Cabral is going to have to maybe readjust his line and really try to maybe attack him into the corner here of turn number 13 and then into turn number 14, trying to stay around the inside as much as he can. Into turn number 15, going to have to go the long way around the outside and not able to do anything of it. And just as I say that, Chris Byram and Lewis Archer have both pit, so Lewis Archer, I'm pretty sure responding there to Chris Byram. And if you're just joining us, this battle is going to keep on going as Cesar Cabral and Luis Colon are all going at it right now into the final corner. Once again, Cesar Cabral misjudging the braking and again losing himself a bit of a position. But Luis Archer does indeed come out way ahead there of Carlos Catal. So where I thought Carlos Catal, Luis Archer, Cesar Cabral and Luis Colon were all going to be battling for the same sort of position, apparently that is not the case at all, and indeed means that Chris Byram and Luis Archer are net first and second, with Ivan Bothkamp still yet to pit. And I'm sure now what will happen is Ivan Bothkamp's going to come in this lap, I imagine, with Chris Byram saying, hey, I've come out in a really good position. Yes, you may have been not as close. You'll probably be battling with Cesar Cabral and Luis Colon on exit, so just be careful, as indeed this is what we'll see. Cesar Cabral and Luis Colon all battling it out into turn number 11 here before the long back straight. So we know how important it is to maybe be behind here and not necessarily the car in front, as Luis Colon's going to try and tuck into the slipstream, maybe try and use some DRS if he has any available to him, as Luis Colon's going to look to the inside, then round to the outside, maybe try and sell Cesar Cabral a little bit of a dummy, but I'm sure Cesar Cabral is not going to fall for anything there. Cuts that inside nicely, making sure that Luis Colon has to now go a long way around the outside of turn number 13, and so far nothing doing yet, as into turn 14 they're just going to follow the leader into turn number 15. So far nothing doing there, but Cesar Cabral back up into 5th place, needs to really start to push to maybe catch up to the back of Carlos Catal. So we'll see whether or not this this push from Luis Colon gets Cesar Cabral moving in the right direction, as Ivan Bothkamp has indeed pit, and we will see where he comes out. Does he come out in the way of Luis Archer? It doesn't look like he does. Does he come out battling Carlos Catal? Again, doesn't look like he does. So he comes out ahead, quite a bit away ahead of Cesar Cabral, as Luis Colon almost looked like he was going to try and send it up the inside, but nothing there. And once again, what that means is Ivan Bothkamp is now net 4th position, and I believe the battling with Cesar Cabral and Luis Colon has cost them both that position there of P4, which again is going to mean in turn we're going to see Carlos Catal finish P3 in the championship, if P3 in the race if things keep going on like they are. Luis Archer currently in P2, knows that Carlos Catal is quite close, 1.5 seconds behind, and knows that Carlos is going to try and push for everything he can to catch up to the back. DRS's trying to get slipstream, trying to get absolutely everything he can, as we will jump back on board with this battle with Luis Colon and Cesar Cabral and see whether or not these two can maybe finally just work together to maybe catch up to the back of Ivan Bothkamp. But this would be a great result for the CUDA Works team here to get a massive amount of points for their team in the Teams Championship. Having Ivan Bothkamp finish 4th and Chris Byram finish in 1st is going to mean a massive points boost over some other competitors in the Teams Championship, like Ariga, like GTR Evolution, and like Lumos eMotorsports as well. So I'm sure Chris Byram is going to be massively happy with a win here, as that will push him into a really nice position with Cesar Cabral as well. But Luis Archer now is within about a second of Carlos Catal attacking him from behind, so we'll keep an eye on this battle. And was indeed Carlos Catal 1 second quicker that last lap, 149.5 compared to Luis Archer's 150.6. So it looks like the first couple of laps here out of the pit lane are very difficult for these drivers and really make it hard to push on the first couple of laps. The heat and the tires just not quite there, as Carlos Catal is going to try and maybe make everything of it. Obviously, he's been going since lap 5 on these tires, so those tires, I'm sure, are getting shredded. And if he's having to push as much as he is to catch up to the back of Luis Archer, who knows what we may end up seeing here near the latter end of this race, as Carlos Catal is going down that back straight and is going to try and look to see whether or not he can maybe make a move, maybe with DRS assistance as well. We'll see. That slipstream looks like it is strong enough, and Carlos Catal going to have to be careful if he looks up the inside here of Lewis Archer into turn number 12, and Lewis Archer just having to give that one up and maybe come back at him into turn number 13 with a really good run, as it looks like turn number 13 does go the way of Carlos Catal. Turn number 14 goes the way of Carlos Catal, so Carlos Catal making an amazing move there into second, and it looks as though Lewis Archer almost went into the back of Carlos Catal, and Carlos Catal spins it on the exit of turn number 15. So Carlos Catal has spun and now is battling with Cesar Cabral here for 5th, which is then going to mean that he's going to be battling with Lewis Colon as well shortly, as Lewis Archer's just been gifted 2nd place there, as Carlos Catal is indeed trying to defend as much as he can, but on worn tires, on very hot tires, is going to be a very difficult thing to do going into turn number 20. Cesar Cabral looking up the inside. Is he going to be able to hold him off, as it looks like Lewis Colon's also going to try and make it 3 wide down the straight. We'll keep on board with Lewis Colon and see whether or not he can do anything, as Lewis Colon looks to maybe try and make it up the inside, but backs off a little bit and just lets the 2 guys ahead of him fight it out, as Carlos Catal holds it the long way around the outside. Very nicely done from him, and Cesar Cabral does indeed reside to taking that 5th place, with Lewis Colon taking that 6th place. And that looked like it was going to be all go, and then into the corner, managing to just find the room there was Carlos Catal, and now immediately starts to push away from Cesar Cabral and Lewis Colon. I think Cesar's just looking too much in his mirrors there at Lewis potentially maybe making a move up on his inside line. And as such, the battling is going to allow Carlos to push away. But what that will mean is Ivan Bovkamp has gained 5 positions here to put himself in 3rd position and maybe take one of, I believe, his first podiums here in the F2, at least this season. And if that happens, that'll be an amazing result for him as well, to beat out the likes of Carlos Catal and Cesar Cabral. I mean, it's proving that anyone here has the pace to win this, to win in this league on any given day, and these drivers are all absolutely giving it everything they've got. And we still have another 13 laps of racing here, as Lewis Colon looked to maybe go up the inside, but Cesar Cabral not thinking anything of it just yet, and knowing if you try to send it here, mate, it's gonna look like an interesting opportunistic move, and instead I'm just going to take the apex and trust that you're gonna, you know, back out a little bit of that move, as indeed that is what happened. And we're going to look to see if Cesar Cabral could maybe push now onto Carlos Catal and really make this battle as close as it can be. I mean, Cesar Cabral is in the middle at the moment of a sandwich of 2 cars, all within sort of about half a second of each other, as Cesar Cabral is trying to make a good run out of turn number 1 and into turn number 2. Obviously flat out here, and then turn number 3 starts the S's, and this is where you'll probably find that Cesar Cabral will drop back a little bit. But we've already seen before from the likes of Lewis Archer being really aggressive off the start that even in this sector, yes, you may be affected by dirty air, but you can still really push in comparison to a lot of these other high downforce sections. So if Cesar Cabral can keep close, he maybe might look to the inside of turn number 11, and let's keep on board and see whether or not he will indeed look for that move, as it looks like, oh, it looks like they touched, and again Carlos Catal has been spun round, and Cesar Cabral did hit into the back of him, does give the position back, so great sportsmanship from Cesar Cabral, but that is not how you wanted to see that move go. I didn't think they were close enough to touch, but that's going to promote Lewis Colon up into 4th position, and Lewis Colon's going to be starting to run away with it as well. So it's looking like all these battles that keep getting close keep ending with somebody unfortunately causing some contact somewhere, and all spinning by themselves, and then that will be the battle over. So yeah, and it looks like Chris Byram has managed to extend the gap over Lewis Archer in the meantime as well, really starting to just lap quite a considerable pace quicker than Lewis Archer. I believe just extending that gap by a couple seconds over the course of the last couple of laps at least. So 1 second quicker so far per lap, so definitely not a bad job there from Chris Byram. But just as I say that, Lewis Archer answers back with a quicker lap time, so probably knows that it's unlikely that he's going to be challenged for P2, and he's unlikely to challenge for P1, but all it will require is 1 safety car to really bring this battle back into contention. And if that happens, we may see an absolutely insane finish to this race. Obviously, we don't hope for safety cars here, but you know, if a safety car does come out, we will be seeing a massively close battle. And with the likes of Carlos Ghosn on those super worn tires in comparison to everyone else, we'll see how the grip holds up. Carlos Ghosn has been saying over the course of the league that these tires can, you know, they can handle it. They can go all the way to the end, and if they can, then what that's going to mean is that we'll end in a position where all those tires are, yeah, all you need to do is just pit early enough to where you can make it on fuel, and then you can just drive to the end of the race and have absolutely no worries, and make the undercut work. Unfortunately, he's had a bit of a couple of incidents that has meant that he's now down there in P5 rather than battling up there for P4 or even P3. So you know, it's going to be frustrating, I'm sure, but I'm sure he'll also come back next week and be trying to just avoid those mistakes. But again, still looking for his first win in the season is Carlos Ghosn, as yeah, it's looking like once again he's just going to try and push as much as he can to catch up back onto the back of Lewis Colon and get that P4. Every point will count, obviously, when it comes to the championship standings. I mean, you know, when we take a look at it, Chris Byram, Lewis Archer, and Carlos Ghosn, as I mentioned, 2-point difference. At the moment, it looks as though Chris Byram is going to be quite a bit ahead of Lewis Archer near the end, and with the way that it's looking, it looks as though Chris Byram may be in the lead of the championship as well, with Cesar Cabral dropping down quite a few positions, I imagine, to third, if the results ended like they are at the moment. And that could see a quite an interesting battle develop towards the end of the race as well, where we'll see Carlos Ghosn, if he can stay ahead of Cesar Cabral and maybe even gain a position on Lewis Colon. If Cesar Cabral can't gain that position on Lewis Colon as well, then we may even see Carlos Ghosn jump ahead of Cabral. But again, as I say, with all these drivers being so close on points, they want to make sure they can get every last one of them. And I mean, at the moment, it looks as though Byram has the plan all figured out. You know, he's out there, 10 laps to go, still leading this race and just relaxing near enough. You know, just setting a very consistent pace in that 150s, maybe dropping into the 149 as the fuel gets lower. But now we need to really start to focus here on Carlos Ghosn and Lewis Colon once again, because those two are going to battle it out all the way for P4, all the way down to the final lap of this race. And if they manage to do so, I mean, what that's going to mean is that the gap between Cesar Cabral and Carlos Ghosn will come down in the championship fight. And once again, this is what all the drivers want to figure out now, is where am I in the championship? Who am I fighting with? You know, are there any drivers I need to look at? And I think after this race, Lewis Colon will be a name that people will remember. Ivan Bovekamp as well. You know, Ivan Bovekamp gaining 5 positions in the race may not have the best qualifying pace, but definitely showing us that in the race pace that he has is he's up there with some of the top guys, and he can really start to push it and really start to maybe make a name for himself here in the F2 and prove that, yeah, he may not be as quick as Chris Byram, and he may not be on the same sort of strategy, but hey, if they can make it a CUDA 1-3 or a CUDA 1-2 sometimes, then as far as the team's championship concerned, you're not worried about who's the number 1 driver or the number 2 driver. You're just worried about the points you're getting and making sure that in the drivers' championship, you know, you're sitting where you're sitting, and if Chris Byram wants to sit at the top, he's definitely going to be. And then in terms of the team's championship, as long as CUDA are up there, they're not going to care. And Ivan Bovekamp picking up P3 is going to be a massive W for both of them. So it looks as though Matt Turner's coming in for a 3rd pit stop. I believe he has jumped back to the pit lane, so maybe DNF'd here. We'll wait and see whether or not he does indeed come back out. But yeah, Matt Turner was doing well. Definitely in this championship, and then yeah, all of a sudden he just sort of lost a couple of positions. I think he may have crashed a few times, and then as such is now out there in P10 and potentially out of this race. We'll take a look and see actually what these crashes look like, as we will jump on board with Matt Turner just to figure out what happened and where he's why he's now back in the pit lane. Coming through the final corner, is this again going to be, yep, too early on the throttle, and once again just spinning the car. It's very, very easy to do out of that final corner. Very, very easy to light up the rear tires and make your car unfortunately come to an untimely end. As we will also jump on board, I believe this will be the same incident. Let's take a look at another one here coming out of the pit lane. As he comes out of the pit lane, let's see, does he have any other crashes, or was it just... So he has a bit of a spin there, and then who's that in front of him doing another pirouette? I believe that was Seth Davidson, potentially, or Alex Gutnecht. I believe that was Alex Gutnecht, sorry, who then ends up coming past him. But again, it's proving that some of these drivers are really struggling here to sort out the final corner. But I'll tell you, some drivers that aren't is Carlos Gattal and Cesar Cabral. And with Cesar having such a massive straight here to draft on the back of Carlos, it's going to mean that Cesar's going to try and go the long way around the outside of turn number 12. Not able to find any room yet to make that move. And I believe I saw Luis Colon ahead of them was using a bit of DRS to maybe pull away. So interesting move there. Using some of your DRS instead of using it to attack, but actually to know that if the guys behind you are fighting, then you can use it as a way to really extend the gap and know that actually what that's going to mean is that I'm not going to be as pressured going into the next couple of corners, because I'll have that massive gap that DRS can give you. When you look, it's almost a corner difference here, as Carlos Gattal is now entering into the final corner, turn number 20, potentially with Cesar Cabral in tow. Cesar Cabral is indeed within that 6/10 gap. 4/10 closing up as he looks to maybe try and make a move through turn 1. Not quite close enough just yet. Normally you'd be thinking about 2/10 of a gap going into turn number 1 before you really try to make that move, and instead he's going to just hold back through this S's section and just try to keep as close as possible and maybe make a move into turn number 11 instead. Quite a common overtaking opportunity we've seen so far is into turn number 11, and then after that a long straight into turn number 12, as well as turn number 20 and indeed turn number 1. So 4 key corners that it seems to be able to get right, and make sure that once you do get those right, that you aren't under any pressure at all coming out of them, because otherwise you may find the car behind you is really charging to catch up. And indeed, that's what we're going to see. We're going to see Cesar Cabral starts off the back straight, 5/10 gap, and we'll see that he still gets close enough to make a move. So you're looking at half a second almost in terms of a gap between drivers, and that half a second gap isn't any sort of small margin. That half a second gap is usually quite large, but down a back straight so long, it's just with the slipstream advantage that you get just sitting behind another car, it really can prove to be a situation where you end up with, you know, just having that much more speed and really closing that gap down super closely. But again, Cesar Cabral not able to really find anything yet, as it looks like both of them are just doing pretty similar lap times. No one really finding anything over each other just yet, as it looks as though Cesar Cabral is now a little bit closer than he was last lap, so finding a little tiny bit of time, but not enough to really maybe make a move into turn number 1, and instead it's just gonna relax a little bit and just sit behind for the last couple of laps, I imagine, as we do indeed have 6 more laps left to go. And once we get to that final lap, obviously Chris Byram is just going to be wanting to just ease off a bit, I imagine, and just take it nice and steady, make sure that he doesn't have any incidents, and really just sort of takes it home for an amazing win for himself. Obviously with Carlos Gattal being the one who qualified on pole, and unfortunately having quite a few issues, as it looks as though Lewis Archer has had a little bit of a disconnect. I was a little bit worried then. I thought he was out of the race. My race graphic showing me that he had disconnected, but no, back in the race. So Crisis averted, otherwise that would have been Ivan Bovkamp up into second and Lewis Colon up into third as well. But again, it looks like now Carlos Catal is starting to pull away from Cesar Cabral, which is going to mean that Cesar can maybe just use the draft to maybe catch up to the back of Lewis Colon once Cesar Cabral can really put the pressure on. Once Carlos can really put the pressure on onto the back of Lewis Colon and really start to get those lap times down as they now go past one of the back markers there. I believe it was of Seth Davidson. So yeah, I mean, this race started off all guns blazing, and then towards the end of it, it seems like all that battling at the beginning, all these drivers ended up spreading out a bit, and we're left with a race where it seems as though Carlos Catal has just set the fastest lap of the race. As I say that, everything has been said and done, but again, Carlos Catal, fastest lap of the race, and definitely going to try and push his way up for Lewis Colon there in fourth. You know, he will be able to see him. So it's not as though Carlos is aiming for thin air. He can physically see that car in front, and he knows he's catching. Every single lap, he's seeing that he's getting closer. He's seeing that car get bigger in front of him, and then he's also seeing that car in front, Ivan Bovkamp, who unfortunately looks as though he's going a little bit slow through a couple of the corners, maybe made a mistake or two, and has now put Lewis Colon right up to the back of him. And if he's not careful here, we may see Ivan Bovkamp get overtaken in the very end of this race with only 5 laps to go. We may see a battle for third position here between 4 drivers, and we're looking at Ivan Bovkamp, Lewis Colon, Carlos Catal and Cesar Cabral all battling here for 4th position, but at the moment it looks like Ivan Bovkamp is just keeping ahead of Lewis Colon, who is then keeping ahead of Carlos Catal and Cesar Cabral. So Lewis Colon's definitely going to try and make any move that he can here on Ivan Bovkamp, both taking interesting lines. I think Ivan taking the more traditional line and Lewis Colon taking the line that we saw Lewis Archer be taking in qualifying. Interesting to see how that line plays out, as Chris Byram does indeed go over the line for the 31st time. So we are now on lap 32 of 36, and Lewis Colon is maybe looking to make a move here on Ivan Bovkamp into turn number 1. I'm needing to take a drink because I'm going to have to prepare myself for Cesar Cabral sets the fastest lap of the race and maybe makes a move on Carlos Catal into turn 1, but nothing doing just yet. Just going to happy sit behind. But Ivan Bovkamp there, not a great run out of turn number 1, as Lewis Colon is now all over the back of him through the S's section, all over the gearbox of Ivan Bovkamp, and having to lift off probably a little bit earlier than he would have liked, which is going to mean that Lewis Colon is now potentially looking into turn 11 for his next move, or easing it off through turn 10, maybe not making a move. And just as I say that, Lewis Colon does get a little bit of a snap of oversteer, and again another snap of oversteer, and pushes himself down into P6. So again, the commentator's curse unfortunately playing a factor, and what that means is Ivan Bovkamp now has a little bit of breathing room back there in P3. So Ivan Bovkamp very much in the rearview mirror, thinking that that was a very much a relief for him, as it looks as though his time is just dropping in comparison to the pace of Carlos Catal and Cesar Cabral, who have all of a sudden in the second part of this race got some second wind from somewhere and are really starting to push this car to its absolute limits, with a 149.01 from Cesar Cabral and a 149.56 that last lap, in comparison to that 1 minute 50 from Ivan Bovkamp. I mean, Ivan Bovkamp's lap time wasn't exactly slow, and yet Carlos Catal and Cesar Cabral, both of them are proving that, hey, we have this championship pace. You know, we've got the pace of your Chris Byrams and your Lewis Archers, and yeah, we've just been unlucky this race, so we're now going to take it to everyone we can do. And if Carlos Catal can get past Ivan Bovkamp and put a car in between himself and Cesar Cabral, well, that's again going to be an advantage he has in the championship. But he's running out of laps to do it. He is very much running out of laps to do it. Lap 32 has been completed by Chris Byram, so this is lap 33 of 36. And if if Carlos Catal cannot catch up within the next 3 laps, then he's going to have no time left to make a move on Ivan Bovkamp, and instead he's going to have to settle for 4th position, which I'm sure Carlos is going to be very frustrated with after such a great performance in qualifying as well. But there is a back marker ahead as well. We'll see whether or not the back marker can get out of the way of these guys who are absolutely going to try and push for everything they've got. And I believe that would be Alexander Carver-Robbins, who is a teammate of Carlos Catal. So potentially there could be some team orders going on here, but I don't think there will be, as the slipstream and DRS is enough. And oh no, contact made between Ivan Bovkamp and Cesar Cabral, and I believe that will be Carlos Catal's race over. But it does look like Carlos can get back running again. That was a massive crash there for Carlos Catal, and I want to view that back on board with at least I want to try and get back on board with Carlos Catal on that one, because that looked like it was an absolutely massive crash here. I'm going to see whether or not we can get an on board with Carlos Catal. So here we are, and then just Ivan Bovkamp coming across, thought it was maybe a little bit too close, and indeed just tries to squeeze him too much, and unfortunately I believe Carlos Catal is now out of the race, couldn't get back to the pits and is now out, which is absolutely devastating for him. Ivan Bovkamp does come back to the pit lane, does manage to get it back into the pits, but that's going to promote Cesar Cabral up into 3rd place. So both of them taking, unfortunately, a massive collision at the end, with Ivan Bovkamp and Carlos Catal having collided down the straight before turn number 12, and yeah, Carlos Catal unfortunately will be getting a DNF. You know, he may get points for this race depending on where Daniel Thomas finishes. I believe there is not enough laps left for Daniel Thomas to overtake Carlos Catal, so I believe Carlos will actually be classified as 9th, even though his car didn't finish, just because of that crash, unfortunately, between two. But that is definitely going to be something that will be looked at post-race, I imagine, because that was a very nice battle brewing between the 3 of them, even between the 4 of them potentially. And yeah, unfortunately, with Lewis Colon having a bit of an issue and sliding out, and then Ivan Bovkamp trying to be a little bit too aggressive on his defending and causing a collision there with Carlos Catal, it's going to mean that the battle does go in Cesar Cabral's favor, puts him up into P3, and as such, it's going to mean that with 2 laps left, well, I say 2 laps left, obviously we're on lap 35, so this lap and 1 more, it's going to mean that your championship order is going to look like Chris Byram, your race order is going to look like Chris Byram, Lewis Archer, and Cesar Cabral, as Cesar Cabral there does just try to make his way past a back marker, and unfortunately locks his brake up a little bit there, so not the nice and easy move he wanted to make. But Alexander Carver-Robbins just getting out of the way and not causing any issues. And again, great result from Lewis Archer to gain 4 positions. But again, Alexander Carver-Robbins and Seth Davidson doing some great jobs to come from near enough the back of the grid up into P7 and P8. So great points finish for those guys. And unfortunately, it does come at the tail end of Carlos Catal being out of this race, which is absolutely devastating, and again going to mean a lot for the championship standings. I mean, what it's going to mean is that Chris Byram is definitely going to be ahead of Cesar Cabral for the championship at the end of this race, unless Lewis Archer has any sort of mistakes. And it may mean, I believe, the point difference between Lewis Archer and Cesar Cabral is too much for any moves to be made there between the 2 of those guys. So it looks as though Cesar Cabral and Chris Byram will swap positions in the championship, and Lewis Archer will stay there in 3rd, but admittedly very, very close to the championship win as we will finish up round number 6 here from the Circuit of the Americas. And it's been a race that has been filled with absolute craziness. It's just been absolutely mental. You know, we've been seeing action everywhere on track, and it hasn't let up for the majority of this race. So, you know, massive congratulations to all these drivers. They've done an amazing job and made this race absolutely incredible. And yeah, I mean, we will have 9 finishers, unfortunately, out of a 13 car grid, but sometimes that's how the Circuit of the Americas goes, and it's proving that once again it is a very difficult circuit, and this man here, Chris Byram, has indeed mastered it, or at least as much as he can do on any given day. He will be currently 15 seconds ahead of Lewis Archer, and when Archer was making the point to prove last week, I think Chris Byram heard it, Carlos Catal heard it, and Carlos Catal went to try and qualify in pole, tried to get a good getaway, but Chris Byram proved to be a little bit too much there off the start, and then as soon as Chris Byram got that gap, he was gone, and has just led a very dominant race since then. So here we are coming through the final corners here of turn number 19, and now into turn number 20 here. Chris Byram will be finishing the race in P1, will be taking home that checkered flag and winning the US Grand Prix here from Formula 2 in round number 6. And what a race it was from himself. Lewis Archer coming round the final corner here to finish in P2 as well, taking second place here on the podium, and he's going to be happy with that result. And then probably one of my favorite guys to interview, the absolutely wonderful Cesar Cabral, finishing here in P3, with Lewis Colon finishing in P4, just shy of finishing in P3, but amazing result there from Lewis Colon as well. Alex Goodnecht finishing in P5, having a pretty quiet race, but definitely one he could be proud of for the Lumos guys. And then Ivan Bovkamp there finishing P6, with Alexander Carver-Robbins 7th, Seth Davidson 8th, and then Daniel Thomas, I believe, will be classified in 9th, coming home there, as he will have, indeed he has overtaken Carlos Catal right at the end. But once again, what an incredible race from F2. I mean, every single time this race really shows what it is capable of, and it is absolutely amazing to get to broadcast this every single week. And yeah, unfortunately there was a bit of contact between a couple of drivers, but that did cost Carlos Catal the opportunity there to finish the race as he would have liked to. Ivan Bovkamp finishing there in 6th after the contact, so I'm sure Carlos will be taking a look at that and seeing what he could have done different, and Ivan Bovkamp same as well. But we will try and get a couple of people in for interviews, and hopefully we can get Chris Byram in here, our championship championship leader. He will indeed be in he will indeed be P1 after the win here. The gap definitely have been decreased enough to where Cesar Cabral has now put himself down into P2. But yeah, again, an amazing opportunity from all these guys to race here and prove that, you know, regardless on what circuit we race at, regardless on the amount of entrants that turn up, we're going to keep racing as hard as we possibly can and prove that we are one of the best leagues for formula racing within iRacing. But we'll see if we can get Chris Byram here coming in here shortly, and then we'll see if we can get Lewis Archer and Cesar Cabral in here as well. Just waiting for them to see if I can spot them join the broadcast waiting room, as your results there are on the screen. And I'm going to take a big drink of water because my voice is going. As it would do, commentating for 36 laps by yourself. Yeah, an hour and 43 of just not talking. it's intense, but these guys make it so worth it. And you guys in the audience as well, everyone coming through does indeed make it just such an amazing opportunity. As Cesar Cabral currently has a mic issue, so unfortunately will not be able to interview. So that'll be unfortunate, but we'll see if we can get in a couple of the other guys in a second as well. As it looks as though I want to see if I can get in Chris Byron, but it doesn't look like anyone is joining me. And yeah, with that being said, then I will probably end it off here. And yeah, I mean, it was a great race once again here in the iFormula League Formula 2 series, round number 6. And I will see you all for the next race, which will be the Formula 3. Again, same track tomorrow. In fact, it does seem like we do have Lewis Archer here in the waiting room, so we will get an interview in here with him. So let's drag him on in here. Hey Lewis, mate. Once again, a P2 from yourself. Looked like it was a very interesting race. A lot of battling going on early on, but then sort of seemed like there was a little bit of a lull near the middle of the race that ended up in quite a quiet finish, I imagine, for yourself.
Yeah, I did I tried to keep an eye on what was going on around me more in this event than any others. It's a weak track for me, this one. As much as I love it, I really love it. I've just never been chipper quick here. I've just never been lead pace. And again today, exactly the same situation. Chris, I'm so happy for Chris, so happy for Chris. And but yeah, trying to keep bearing of what was going on around me. There were so many things happen. I see people losing control on the last lap and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, with a high dig track like this, you will get that lull in the middle where people are trying to get their tires in, and it's the people that didn't that come up crop at the end. But you see so many names go down the list at the end. I was like, who is going to get that other podium?
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. I think at the end of the race we had like 3 or 4 different drivers all battling near the end. You know, we had Carlos Quintao, Ivan Bovekamp, and Cesar Cabral all battling for that 3rd position, and it was amazing to commentate. And unfortunately, did end with Ivan and Carlos unfortunately having a collision together, and that meant that Carlos dropped down to P9 and DNF'd, and Ivan finished in P6 with Cesar Cabral taking that 3rd place spot. So. Yeah, unfortunate for Carlos, but hey, that's sometimes how racing goes.
Yeah, really looking forward to watching that one back. Honestly, it looks like it from, like you said, that little lull in the middle there. I felt that, but there was plenty of action going on on that race. But yeah, for me to I didn't expect a podium, not one little bit, not coming off P6. I was like, I'm just going to try and stay in this race and hope that, you know, other things happen to other people and it comes to me. And yeah, really quickly, I came up the front and I was like, oh, just try and hold on to this. So P2, I'm absolutely amazed at that. Really, on a track I don't have pace, P2's gold dust.
Well, what it's going to mean as well is for the championship fight. Obviously, you extend the gap to Carlos Quintao, which is something that obviously you're looking to do, especially this late into the season. Obviously, we're getting near the halfway point now, so every point will matter. And unfortunately, Chris will extend that gap to you, but you will also decrease the gap to Cabral. So, you know, there's a bit of everything going on there for yourself. So, again, a P2, as you said, absolutely happy with it. And on a track that you say you didn't have pace on, it looked like you could have really fought. But unfortunately, it looked like Chris Byron just managed to get away near there off the start. And unfortunately, not much else able to happen after that. But yeah, I mean, amazing result again for yourself, P2. And, you know, if you keep finishing on the podium, who knows what the championship fight looks like at the end of it.
That's it. Or like you said, all you can do is do the best you can on the weeks that you know you can't bring it. And like last week, I knew I could. And I thought, right, you definitely need to win them because I know that next week I'm not going to be so good. So, yeah, thanks, man. And I really look forward to watching this stream back. You do a great job.
Thank you very much, mate. And yeah, hopefully it goes well. But as you can tell, my voice is absolutely dead after the start of the race. It was all go. But yeah, it was absolutely amazing race to watch. And you guys in F2 bring it every single week, and it is probably the highlight of the week to be able to commentate on this. It's amazing. But thanks again, mate. And hopefully I'll see you back next week. Sorry, not next week. Week after, as we will have, I believe, a week break. I believe.
Excellent. See you then, buddy.
Yeah, see you later, mate. As we will try and bring in Chris Byram here. I'll just see if he is ready. And if he is, we will drag him in, and we'll get some thoughts on him as to what he thought. Obviously, having a relatively nice race here in P1. So yeah, I mean, it was a really good result, and something that he can be definitely proud of. As I will see if I can just bring him in here, and trying to find where the broadcast booth is. Here it is. Hey Chris, once again, P1 for yourself. Again, really dominant race it looked like for yourself. That will be your third win here in the season. So you're taking 50% win rate so far. Hoping to obviously push that a little bit further, I'm sure, as the season progresses.
Do you see what happens when I get the right start time? If I turn up on time, it's all good. It's all good. I need a little bit longer to practice. Saying that though, I didn't actually get much time to practice at all this week. I did 10 laps on Thursday, I think. I was too tired to do any more because I was practicing for Sebring, and I am absolutely shattered now. I've been awake since 6 o'clock on Friday, 6 a.m. I've not slept a wink. My arms are absolutely ripped off. My wrists are ripped off, and I am going to go to bed as soon as this is over.
But it looked as though, honestly, after the start and the battle you were having with Carlos Quintana, it looked as though you managed to just really settle into a really nice rhythm, and nothing could really touch you after that. It looked as though you just got away and was settling into the 1 minute 50s early on, and then later on 1 minute 49s, and just really controlling the race and just not really having any pressure. So obviously that means that, you know, whatever practice you did do must have been good practice at the very least. So yeah, I mean, it's really nice to see.
I really love this track, man. I absolutely love this track. It flows so well. And I just channeled my inner Jorge Lorenzo. He's like one of my favourite MotoGP racers. And he's one of these guys that you can battle, but if he gets out front and he can just do lap after lap after lap, and he just ekes out a gap. And with Carlos, I just know that if I can get out in front of him, but not at every track, but I've noticed in a few situations, if I can get out in front, and I can pull over a second, and then I can just get into my rhythm, and then I can just pull away and just settle into like a really, really nice rhythm. So that's what I was able to do. And I noticed that Lewis, going down into the big hairpin, he took a big lunge and managed to gain a few spots, I think. And then I could just see on the relative, like him and him and Carlos were just swapping positions and just managed to get a 5 second gap. And then from there, car just felt really, really good, settled in and started banging in 49 laps. Really gutted at the end though. I really wanted to go for the fastest lap. And I'd saved 5 DRS for the last lap. I ended up hitting my pit limiter instead of my DRS button on the wheel. As I come onto the pitch straight, I hit my limiter. I was like, what? No. And my relative just dropped from like 0 to 4/10. I was like, oh, that's gone. I think I get safest driver. I only picked up 3 incident points, which is pretty good. So
yeah, especially around this track, it's very easy to pick up an off track. If people haven't tried it, try and do was that a 36 lap race in this car and not pick up a single off track. It's a lot harder than you might think.
Yeah. Even more so after the update, I've noticed that it's easy to get an off track here as well after the latest update. So, or with the new rules that come up, I don't know, but yeah, I noticed a few areas you just have to be a bit cautious. So, just trying to do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, mate, it looked like you were absolutely just on it from the word go. And after the battle you had with Carlos, and you managed to pull out that gap, and as you say, battling behind you just helped to eke out even more time. And after that, you were just yeah, you were gone, and yeah, it's going to mean that you will be the leader of the championship, as far as I'm aware. You'll
Yes.
take the lead over Caesar Cabral. I was double checking that, but yeah, I believe you will be ahead. It's not going to be by many points, admittedly, but it's definitely going to be a
Top
nice.
of the table, top of the table.
Yeah,
That's
it's
where I
going to be
need to
nice.
be. So
But
yeah,
yeah,
I'll
looking
just
forward to the
2
next
wins in a
round.
day.
Yeah,
2
yeah,
wins in
because you
one
won
day.
in you won in Sebring as well. So congratulations on that one as well. Obviously,
Yeah.
amazing result there. Yeah, I mean, Sebring is obviously an amazing circuit to win on, and to win in 2 American circuits in one day, it's not too bad.
I do love American circuits. I always go well at Laguna Seca as well. I was hoping that would get selected for the bogey track in the season, but I think it was Monza in the end. So
Yeah,
yeah.
which I
Oh
believe
well,
is where we'll
I'll
be
go well at
heading
Monza.
next. I believe
Oh,
that
is
is
it
the
really
next round.
Monza? I love Monza. I'll go well at Italian tracks and American tracks. So next season, I'm going to put forward a plan just to have American, even oval, American, Italian, and then that's it.
Nothing else, just race out all the American circuits, all the Italian circuits, and nothing else.
Exactly.
And that'll be it. You done. But yeah, I mean, always great to hear from you. And every single week, you know, you bring it to a different level. And as I say, Carlos Quital definitely tried to push you for everything that he had, but unfortunately, with you know, with the incidents that they had, it meant that we were left with just you taking the lead, and that was all she wrote. But
Yeah.
there was a week off next week, so no racing next week, and then we are getting back to it with Monza next the week after that, and then Spa after that. So that'll be our next
Good.
doubleheader of races. So Monza and Spa, both amazing tracks. So can't
Yeah,
wait to see what you guys can do at that.
Monza, I'm keen on. I always go well at Monza. Spa, Lewis had amazing pace last season. Absolute, like he was a second faster than the field. So I might have to ask to borrow his setup for that one. Maybe that one helps, but
So
no,
you're
good to have
thinking
a
it
win.
could be a possible Hungaroring situation all over again?
No, I was gutted about Hungarian because I had practice for that and I had really, really good pace, but I just need like 20 minutes just to get my eye in for the
Yeah.
track. Even if I've practiced before, it's just I'd practice in different temperatures, so I just wasn't used to it. And the rush of just having to go straight into qualify, I just got into a right faff, and then that was it. And then I locked my brakes, and I think I touched Ivan at the beginning, but luckily I didn't cause any too much damage to him or anyone else. So yeah, it was a disaster. But yeah, see what happens at Spa. Hopefully not. Hopefully he won't run away, but you know what I mean. If he can run away at one race, we'll let him win at Spa, and then the rest I need to take the wins and the championship. So
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, next week will be well, the next race week anyway will mark the halfway point of the season. So it's definitely going to be all to play for as we go further back. And yeah, I mean, a win today is obviously going to set you up quite nicely to definitely keep pushing and get yet another win. I mean, this is the goal, isn't it? Is for all you top guys now. You know, yourself, Lewis Archer, Caesar, you know, Carlos Quital, even Lewis Colon I saw was getting involved this week. So all amazing stuff, and it looks like everyone's getting close.
it was lovely to see Louis back up there. Like he's got really, really good pace. It's so unfortunate because he was in at one point. He was about 7 seconds behind me, and he was bringing the gap down. He started going into the 49s. And I was thinking, right, I need to try and up my pace. And he was matching my race pace, or if not better at some points. So a bit disappointing to see that he didn't make it off, but hopefully he'll be there in the next race. It's always good to race against Louis.
Yeah, as I say, it's awesome to see all these drivers getting involved as well. Considering the fact that we've got such a small grid, it doesn't feel that way when you're watching the racing. That's for sure. With the battling just being absolutely crazy all the way through, it makes for a really great race to commentate on, and you guys do an amazing job. So yeah,
You do a fantastic job. I'm looking forward to watching the stream back. Not tonight, it'll probably be tomorrow. So
yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, I'm gonna leave you because I'm shattered.
Yeah,
Shattered.
absolutely, mate. I will see you later.
Yeah.
And yeah, again,
shout
congrats on the win.
Shout out to IFL admin and then everyone that takes part, and then also shout out to the P1 racing community. That's to be raced for in Sebring. So shout out to all those lads as well.
Yeah,
Take care.
See you later,
Peace
mate.
and love. Ta-da.
And yeah, that'll do it from us here in the IFL. And once again, an absolutely insane race. And all those guys do an absolutely incredible job. And yeah, that'll do it from us. Once again, thank you to all of our sponsors that make this happen. TD Designs, Major Garage, all of the guys over at that make our wonderful track cams as well. Track cams for Gourmet. And yeah, I mean, it's all amazing, and you guys really help us to provide absolutely incredible racing every single week. But yeah, for now, that'll be it from us. We will see you back in 2 weeks' time for Monza.